sorts of mountains to try to curse Israel. He finally has to bless them. So it's fairly appropriate that we give the class from up above today. This portion called Balak. Who is Balak? Does anyone remember?
He's a very powerful king who wants to employ Balaam to curse the Jews.
All right, a powerful king of what country?
Moab.
Moab, who wants Balaam to curse the Jews. Have we encountered either of these people before?
No.
Not in the text of the Torah. There are legends that Balaam was a counselor to Pharaoh who gave him the ideas of destroying the Jews through the babies, things like that, along with Job and Yitro, who departed, wouldn't be part of their evil schemes. But basically, up till now in the text, we don't know Balak and we don't know Balaam. What's the common denominator of Balaam and Balak?
Balaam was a very, very great prophet, almost like Moses.
All right, well, what's the common denominator?
Hatred of the Jew.
Hatred of the Jew, right? Nasty people. What else? They're not Jewish.
No.
We suddenly have, in the middle of the most Jewish part of the Torah, this is way after Adam and Noah, way after the patriarchs even were with the Jews in the desert, we suddenly have a whole portion, most of which is dialogue and plans of two non-Jews. Very interesting. Where else do we have non-Jews taking over the Jewish Torah, sort of, in the Bible?
Oh, yeah.
Yitro speaks a little bit.
Daniel, maybe.
I would say Job's friends.
Yes.
You don't see anything Jewish about the whole book.
What, Eliphaz and...
Yeah, all those guys, they're not Jewish apparently.
Well,
So Rabbi Hankin's conclusion is, by putting in a little bit of that, God's trying to teach us, you pay attention to what non-Jews say too, even bad ones. In other words, we may feel that the PLO is the incarnation of the devil, and I personally do feel so. However, that doesn't mean you should ignore them. You have to listen to what they say and pay attention to it, respond appropriately, and if you're clever enough, or if there's enough of God in you, is a better way to put it, if you're really close to God, you may be able to turn the PLO's curses to blessings. You may convince the Arabs that Islam is false. God never did change his mind. And they have a full share in the Torah. An absolutely full share. Okay? So we start this week's portion with Balak. Does anyone remember what we finished last week's portion with? What finished Chukah, the red heifer? What did we finish with? What did we finish last week? What did we finish?
This gentleman is saying something to you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Alvin didn't show up today.
say that it's only
Right.
than the
Yeah,
last
it's
time.
an emergency, he didn't show up. Okay. So what is the end of no, Korah was 2 weeks ago here. In America, they're a week behind. So if you look at the American calendar, you'll get mixed up.
Oh, the Jewish press.
Right, the Jewish press will get you mixed up. Now, what did we finish last week's portion of Chukah with?
With the red cow?
Red cow started it. What did it finish with?
All I know is it purifies the person.
Yes, that's the red cow, but we didn't finish with the red cow. We started with the red cow. What did we finish with? We finished with the Jewish conquest, the first major Jewish conquest of two powerful Amorite kings, Sichon and Og, who were absolutely devastated by the Jews, their land taken over, and the Jews are in really good shape at this moment. This is the new generation about to conquer the land, okay?
By the way, may I make a remark?
Yes.
So frequently we make references as they were the only two biggies that we destroyed. We destroyed Pharaoh.
Yes.
We destroyed, in a way, Balak's purpose, and Balaam didn't exactly grow in the stature in the community. Why do we so often repeat Og and Bashan?
Why don't we?
We do.
We do. Sichon and Og were...
Sichon and Og.
Yeah, because they were the first Jewish victory. We do and we don't, by the way. The amount of fuss we make about Sichon and Og and the space we give to it in our liturgy and the Torah is far less than the space given to Pharaoh. But still, I would say there's something special to celebrate, because Sichon and Og is the first Jewish victory. The victory over Pharaoh is God's victory. The Jews aren't ready to fight yet. Sichon and Og is like battling the British before 1948. The first Jewish victories before the actual capture.
That's already under Joshua.
Okay, yeah. So Sichel and Og represents, they represent simply the beginning of Jewish military power, which God wants. God doesn't take them the quick way. He takes them a roundabout way because they're not ready to fight the police king, the Philistines. God could bump off the Philistines the same way he bumped off Pharaoh, but he doesn't want that. Part of being a model holy people is also to be a model army. You must have an army to destroy evil. This country only exists as long as we have a very strong army, at least till we're all perfect, and God may take over then, but then the Arabs may not object. But at least at the moment, it's only through Jewish people having the courage, much more courage than it takes and much more sacrifice than to sit in yeshiva. It's the sacrifice of risking your life and going out and fighting. And so we celebrate Sichel and Og when the Jews were able to do that finally. The new generation, the children of the ex-slaves, the children of the concentration camp survivors, if you will. All right. So now, they had this smashing victory. What's a reasonable response of Moab? Now the Jews are at the border of Moab. How should the Moabites respond?
They're frightened
They're frightened. Why are they frightened?
because they heard of very big people that destroyed
Sichel and Og.
Sichon and Og, and that they'll come and destroy them too.
Right. So what would be their natural response then?
Just not allow them to enter their land.
But suppose what would you do to them?
Destroy them.
Destroy them. In other words, Moab should try to destroy Israel. Do they?
No, they only wanted them to be cursed.
All right, they only wanted to curse them. They don't try to destroy them. We'll see how that comes about. Actually, it's not clear. In Joshua and Judges, this is referred to also. And there they speak about them starting a war. Very difficult. In the text itself, I believe it's in Joshua is the case of the war. In the text itself, they don't do anything to us except try to curse us. And they do something else at the end, but they don't fight. So you have to say in Joshua, when it says that they came out to war against us, it means a spiritual war, scheming, plotting, but not a physical war. Okay. Why was the Jewish situation rather unique here as opposed to other military victories?
Because they weren't in their own land?
They weren't in their land, they were ex-slaves. In other words, this was not a normal military victory. It was a smashing one, but it was not a normal one. Suddenly a bunch of ex-concentration camp survivors defeat the British trained and aided Foreign Legion of Jordan, the British trained people. So that's not normal. So they're fighting here a supernatural force, God and Moses plus Israel. If it were Israel alone, they never could beat up Sichon and Og. So they can't use normal military means. So what do? They look for something that will counter Jewish spiritual power. In other words, to end the Jews' protexia, the Jews' protection, special status with God. How can you end the Jews' special status with God? What two ways?
Make the Jews sin.
Make the Jews sin. And that comes later. They tried out at the end, and it's successful.
Make them sin.
Make them sin.
That's an idea which apparently occurs to them later. They didn't think of that idea. And you just inspired me a very interesting thought. Why did they think of that idea? Because they didn't see religion as being good. They just saw it as doing magical rituals, sacrifices, kosher stuff like that. So they didn't see that moral turpitude somehow aroused God, because their own way of life with their gods was moral turpitude. But then, once God forces them to bless Israel, and he sees Mato Guo Halecha Yaakov, I think it's in 24:5, when he says, how good are your tents, O Jacob, that he recognizes Jewish family life and sexual morality is somehow makes God like them, then he says, I got an idea. Let's see if we can tempt them away from their family life to take Miss Moab of that year instead of taking the Beis Yaakov girl.
Oh, Zimri and Pinchas.
Right, at the end, you see? But at first they didn't think of that. So how would they first think to take the Jews away from God? Yeah, why would that work? I mean, why would they think that would somehow help? Let's put it this way, say one
They
kid.
will forget their God, and then they will go.
Why would that make them forget their God, cursing them? Let's say that you have two children.
They would be blessed by God anymore. So.
Well, but why would God listen to the curse? In other words, say you have two children, and daddy clearly prefers one child to another. Now, The other child has two recourses: to make the favorite child look bad, make him sin. That's one way out. And the other way is what? To make himself nice to daddy. Asa brings him nice food, treats him with great honor. So you either try to make nice to daddy, or you try to make him bad with daddy. So the first way is they tried to make nice with daddy. They brought all kinds of sacrifices and religious rituals and all kinds of thoughts and meditations, all kinds of stuff. So that's their first approach. They try to bring their own spiritual sources to bear in this great battle. That's their first approach. When that doesn't work, then they hit upon a new scheme to make Israel sin. Very good. Now let's actually start our text. Our text opens with Amalek, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. What's unusual about that first sentence? I'll read it again. Amalek, the son of Zippor, this is 22:2, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites.
I think he was afraid they would do the same thing to him.
Yes, he was, but what's unusual about the text? Yeah, I'll read it again. And Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. I'll go on a few more sentences.
We don't know who Balak is.
That's right. What should it say?
Oh, identify.
Balak Melech Moab.
Right. It should say Balak, the king of Moab. We never met him before in this tale. So it starts up, Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. Did he see it? Probably not. He wasn't an Amorite. And Moab was sore afraid of the people because they were many. And Moab was distressed because of the children of Israel. He was disgusted, would be a better translation. What's wrong with that sentence? Again, and Moab was sore afraid of the people because they were many. And Moab was distressed or disgusted because of the children of Israel. What's unusual about that
Sounds
sentence?
a little bit like Pharaoh.
Yeah, but just in the structure, just in the words.
The repetition.
Yeah, on the contrary, it's not a repetition. I'll read it again. And Moab was sore afraid. You mean Moab twice. That's the point. And Moab was sore afraid of the people because there were many. And Moab was distressed because of the children of Israel.
There were so many.
Wait, which would, if I say, for example, I want to say, talk about Milton's video work. And I say, you know, he really did an outstanding job the other day. Milton photographed a great lecture. What's wrong with that sentence?
Oh, it's backwards.
Right. Why is it backwards?
Because you say the detail
I'm
separate.
forgetting that. I'll do it differently then. And he did a great job the other day. Milton really knows how to photograph. What's wrong with that sentence?
You haven't said what he did. Well, he did a great job. You haven't.
I said he did a great job the other day.
I get a sort of reverse.
What's the reversal here? He did a great job the other day in videoing a lecture. Milton really knows how to photograph.
If he did a good job, then he's a good photographer.
Yeah, but so what's wrong with the sentence?
You have to start off Milton.
Right. I don't first use a pronoun and then a noun. I first identify what I'm talking to and later refer to it with a pronoun. So here, Moab was sore afraid of the people. Who? Because there were many. And Moab was disgusted because of the children of Israel. So it should say first, Moab was sore afraid of the children of Israel because there were many, and Moab was disgusted at the people. So he would say children of Israel first and then the people. You wouldn't say the people first and then later identify them as the children of Israel. That's the problem with the second verse. We'll put it all together soon. Third verse. Well, that was the third verse. I'm sorry. It's the second in our portion. It's verse 3 of chapter 22. 4. And Moab said to the elders of Midian, who's negotiating with whom here? Moab. The king? Apparently not. It's the people somehow. And Moab said to the elders of Midian, now shall this group lick up all that are round about us as an ox licks up the grass of the field. And Balak, the son of Zippor, was king of the Moabites at that time. All of a sudden at the end, it says, oh, by the way, our old buddy Balak was the king of the Moabites at that time. That's not the way you do it. You start off, Balak, the king of Moab. So, you don't have to have this whole last sentence, and you'll know right away he's the king of Moab. And And why say at that time? Everybody's a king for a day. I mean, no king lasts forever. So why say at that time? Okay?
Well, because the people were afraid and distressed, but didn't know what to do, but he knew what to do.
Yes, and therefore?
Well, it mentions the distress of the people.
Fine, so why
and
not
the
say at the
initiative of the
beginning,
king.
though? But why not say at the beginning, and Balak, king of Moab? Why not say at the beginning?
Maybe he wasn't king at the beginning.
Ah, that's one conclusion. One conclusion is he wasn't the king.
They made him a king for the occasion.
Right. That's it. In other words, he saw. Remember we had that problem with he saw. What do you mean he saw? He didn't see it. He wasn't there. It means he had insight. Like, see, I give you this day blessing and curse in Deuteronomy. In Ecclesiastes 9:9, see life with a woman who you love. It doesn't mean you hold hands and watch a sunset. It means you have insight into life together. You exchange insights. That's see life with a woman whom you love all the days of your life. Ecclesiastes 9:9. So, and Balak saw means he had insight. Nobody knew what to do. This was not a normal situation. It was supernatural. You had Moses, you had God intervening. So only Balak had insight both into what Israel did and into the fear of the Moabites, how to deal with it. And therefore, even though there's a lot of proofs that he himself was a Midianite sorcerer, they made him king of Moab, the enemy at that time, because he was the only man who could cope with the situation. Do we have another case in the Bible where a man who was despised was made the leader because there was nobody else?
Yeah, wasn't him Gideon? Yiftach.
Last week's October. Yiftach was a leader of a band of ne'er-do-wells, failures, after his brothers threw him out because he was the son, not of their mother, but of some loose woman and their father. And they offered him the generalship because he was the only one who could possibly win. It also involved Amnon and Moab. And he took it on condition that he'd be the leader in the future too. So we see that same pattern here. Balak is made king for a day at that time because he's the one who had insight into this whole situation. And that solves almost everything. Now, they were afraid of two things. They were afraid of the people. First of all, what was the fear of the Jews? Why were they afraid of the Jews? What were they afraid of?
Military victory?
Right. Was that a reasonable fear?
Well, as it says, they saw what they were doing.
They saw what the Jews did to Sichon and Og. So was it a reasonable fear? I would say no.
Oh, why?
Why? First of all, why did the Jews bump off Sichon and Og? Did other people refuse to let them go through their territories? Yeah, Esau, Edom refused. What did the Jews do?
Oh, they went around?
They went around. So why did they bump off Sichon and Og?
Because they refused to let them.
No, not just because they refused. Because why?
Well, they didn't bump up.
Because they threw stones on the road. Sichon and Og came out to fight them. They didn't just refuse entry. They came out to destroy Israel. The Arabs here had no real problems. They had it very good until they started throwing stones and petrol bombs. The Jews aren't looking for war, but if someone tries to destroy the Jews, they fight back. That's the Intifada. And they should fight back very strong. Anyone that tries to kill you, you shouldn't just be easy on them. Don't leave them around to do it again. Throw them out. So they had no reason to fear, because they never saw the Jews make an aggressive war. They were going to make an aggressive war if the Canaanites would not leave or give up idolatry, but they weren't Canaanites. Moab was a different country. Give another reason why they should not be afraid. A better reason even. You know? Anybody know? Remember, Stanley, from last year?
Because Israel was told not to fight against Moab.
Right.
Moab.
God commanded the Jews specifically. In Deuteronomy, it's recorded in Deuteronomy 2:19, for example. When you come near the children of Ammon, said by both Ammon and Moab, distress them not, nor meddle with them, for I won't give you their land. I've given it to the children of Lot, Ammon and Moab. So that's Ammon, and it says elsewhere by Moab. So God specifically told them already not to bother with them. So they had nothing to be afraid of.
But did they know that?
That's the question I put on my sheet. Did they know that? And there's something else. If you look carefully, the language in the Bible is slightly different. By Moab, God says don't make war with them. By Ammon, it says don't even start up with them. Don't distress them. So maybe they could scare Moab, but not fight with them. And if Moab happened to run away, compare 1948, so you take the land. Maybe. But a simpler interpretation, which answers the other question, is were the Jews alone? when trouble starts back in Exodus, what are the troublemakers called? Not the people of Israel, children of Israel, the people. And Pharaoh saw that the people ran away. It may mean all his own subjects who joined the Jews. Like the Russians are afraid if they let the Jews out, everybody else will go out too. So therefore the people may refer to the non-Jews who were with the Jews, and what Moab was afraid of was the people, not the children of Israel. He was afraid of the people. Or that the Jews would get another people to fight them, just like they took over Moabite land, which Sicha and Og had previously captured. So they'll get another people to fight Moab, and then they'll take the land from them. So that's why it says they're afraid of the people, not the children of Israel. And the second thing, and they were disgusted because of the children of Israel, something else. Why, for example, did Hitler so hate the Jews, at least according to his own testimony? Why did Hitler hate the Jews? Were they a menace to him? No. There's nothing to be afraid of. The Jews weren't going to hurt him. The Jews built up Germany. But he couldn't stand their godliness. He couldn't stand their morality. He says they ruined us impetuous pagans by bringing us religion through Christianity and so forth. He hated God. And the Jew is the representative of God. Even in the warped form of Christianity or Islam, it's thrown the Jew. So that's why Hitler hates the Jews. So they're disgusted because of the children of Israel, the Moabite sensual pagan culture based on sex as a snack and kill the next guy, can't stand the entry into their region of Israelite influence. Because the Jews aren't playing a game with God to do all these funny rituals. The purpose of the Jews is to change the world, to bring a new atmosphere to the Middle East. That's the purpose of the Jewish people. So they're disgusted because of the children of Israel. So they want to get rid of them at any cost. Got it? Okay, so we did the first part of the portion. Now, after he's king, he sent messengers. Balak sent messengers to Bilam, son of Beor, over to Midian, saying there's a people. He doesn't call them the children of Israel. There's a people came out of Egypt, and they're covering the face of the earth. The appearance of the land will change. The nightclubs and casinos will disappear. In their place will be nice Ben Noach study centers. And they abide over against me. They're here. Curse me. He knows that normal means won't work. You see, it all fits in very nicely. Curse these people. They're too much for me. I don't know how to do anything with such forces. Maybe then we can drive them out of the land. I don't want to kill them. I just want to drive them out. Because I know you have a good track record, Mr. Bilam, Reverend Bilam. That whatever you bless is blessed, and whatever you curse is cursed. Bilam had divine powers. What we learn from this chapter is you can be a prophet. You can know all about God and still be wicked. Very wicked. And if you can be a man who knows all about God and be very wicked, then you might also be a man who knows all about God who's a little bit wicked. And so we meet occasionally on the streets of Jerusalem such people. People who ostensibly represent God, but they're always screaming and yelling and nasty. You know? It's a very strange phenomenon. So you have to always keep that in mind. The fact that someone is learned or knows all kinds of divine secrets or Kabbalah does not mean he's a good person. Might be a very wicked person. Very important to know. The knowledge of religious things and the ability to manipulate them even. The Torah speaks of a false prophet. He will do miracles. But if he tells you not to obey the Torah, kill him. A false prophet is to be killed. Even if he does the greatest miracles and makes the most beautiful speeches in the world. And Bilam was quite a orator. Bilam was a preacher who could have done pride, worked with pride even in the 19th century. A master preacher. Nothing like him. The Bible even was. Even God's impressed by his preaching ability. But he makes him turn the words to the right cause. All right? So, the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian went with the latest high-tech magical implements, and they came to Bilam and spoke to him the words of Balak. And he said, spend the night, and I'll bring you word again. And you don't see it in English translations, as God, Hashem, will speak to me. We see later that Hashem, God, does not speak to Bilam. He's not on that level. Elohim, the more concealed, businesslike, judgmental aspect of God speaks to Bilam. But he always says, God speaks to me, Hashem. He doesn't say Elohim. Right? So, Elohim came to Bilam and said, who are these guys with you? Of course God knows who they are. Like he's saying, excuse me, Sir Reverend, what are you doing with the mafia guys? What are you doing with all these sort of people? This is not where you belong. You're a holy man. And Bilam said, oh, Balak, the son of Zippor, king of Moab, sent them to me. He calls him the king. Bilam interpretation, by the way, of why Balak is not called the king in the beginning and only afterwards is the following. Who were the greatest kings of that region? Sichon and Og. They had conquered Moab itself. So if the greatest kings were defeated by Israel, suddenly the title king was no great honor. You wouldn't call yourself king. What? The biggest kings are nothing, so what's a little king? So they say that he was king of Moab, but he wouldn't use the title because the title went into disrepute. After the fundamentalist preachers in the United States are exposed as charlatans and immoral, so people might feel a little funny calling themselves reverend. In other words, once great people of a title besmirch the title isn't worth much. So that's another reason why at first he's not called by the Torah the king of Moab. So Elohim says to him, who are these people with you? Bilam said, well, the king sent me people. And he told me there's some certain people, he doesn't say Israel, came out of Egypt and they're changing everything and conquering everything in their path. Curse me. Then we just drive them out. God puts it to him straight. You shall not go with me. Finished. And you shall not curse the people for their blessing. So God tells him this cannot be. It's wrong. It cannot be done. Finished. And Bilam got up in the morning early and he said to the princes of Balak, go home. What should he have said then? How should he have explained it? Why should they go home?
This guy told him to be finished.
Is that all? If he would just say that God told me to be finished with you, what might we think? What should he have said?
He should have said that God would bless Israel.
That's right. He should have said, why? It's not a question of terms. It's a question of the essence of the mission. God said Israel is blessed. They are not to be cursed.
It goes back right to Genesis 12, doesn't it? To Abraham, to the promises made to Abraham.
Right.
God would bless him.
Right. So, but that's not what Bilam says. What's Bilam saying? God won't let me go with you, that's all. He doesn't say that the mission's impossible. He says, right now, God won't let me go. So what do they think? We have to make a better deal. We have to send higher level diplomats. We have to offer more money. And that's exactly what happens. You see? See what he's doing? He wants to go. God tells him it's a bad thing. I mean, he really wants to go. He wants that money. He wants that honor. That's Bilam. Bilam is a greedy guy. And the princes of Moab went back to Balak. They said, he won't come with us. That's what they told him. You can't blame them. And Balak sent more princes and more honorable. And they said, no, come. What's keeping you? I'll give you very great honor. Whatever you want, just curse the people. And what's Bilam answer back? If he would give me his house full of silver and gold, I can't violate the word of God. What's that show? That he wants a house full of silver and gold. You tell a little kid to do something he doesn't want to do. You have to go to the doctor because you must get your braces. And kids, I don't want braces. I have braces. Kids, I won't go even if you give me a free ticket to a movie. That means what the kid wants is to go to a movie. He could say something else. Bilam could say, I won't do it even if you would give $1 million to the Red Cross. Bilam doesn't care about the Red Cross. What Bilam cares about is lots of money. So we see his picture, his character, already drawn here clearly in the Bible. He says, maybe I'll talk God into it. Isn't this a nice symbol for Christianity and Islam? Maybe God will change his mind. God said they're blessed. These are my chosen people. Maybe during the night, just occurred to me, the long exile when the Jews aren't so good during the long night of history, maybe God will come and change his mind. Now, therefore, I pray you, tarry you here also this night. And I may know what God will say something else to me. But we believe God doesn't change his mind. And God came to Bilam at night, again, said Elohim, and said to him, if they really want you, go. God told before, don't go. The rabbis learn from this, if a person persists, God's way is to have free will in this world, and God will even help him, even encourage him. But he may punish him for that choice. But God doesn't treat people as robots. This is a very big lesson for the religious society in Israel, or so-called religious. You don't force people to be religious. You try to convince them. Okay? Go, but you have to say what I tell you. So Bilam rose up with eagerness in the morning and saddled his what?
The
What's
female ass.
The female.
Oh.
Abraham rides a male. The Messiah will ride a male. saw the weak moment, and Bilam ragged shears. And the rabbis even say he used it as a sexual object to give you an idea how corrupt he was as a man of God. But the great speaker, the great theologian, who knows what he'll do behind closed doors? The pharaoh or the bakers or whoever it is, you never know. So he went with the princes of Moab, and God was angry, and the angel stood in the way. And remember, he was riding on his donkey, his ass, and 3 times, first it went aside, then it pushed him into a wall, then it crouched down. He hit it each time, because it saw the angel about to kill him. And finally God opens his eyes, and he sees it, and the angel tells him, the donkey tells him, why'd you hit me? Since you were a little child, you rode upon me. And he's nonplussed, and oh yeah, donkey speaking, I'll answer back. He says, well, because you stopped me in the way. Then God lets him see the angel about to kill him. So Bilam apparently has no problems with talking to the donkey. He's into who knows what mystical realms. Maybe he, like Solomon, maybe he even understood the language of animals, who knows? But the donkey can see more than Bilam. And then the angel says to him, and once he sees the angel, fell flat in his face, says, why'd you hit your ass? Doesn't ask him about his religious beliefs, but at least the main thing is, why did you hit your donkey 3 times? He never mentioned. I went out against you because your way is bad. And the ass saw me, and if she hadn't turned away, you know what would have happened? I would have killed you. Stop there. No, the angel doesn't stop there. I would have killed you, and I would have kept her alive. What's that imply?
That she died.
That she died. Now, why did at this point God see that the donkey died, the ass died? Why? So there's 2 theories. One, that even an evil man like Bilam, but he's a human being, and a human being is connected to God. And therefore, if there's an animal which would be a living embarrassment and shame to a human being, that animal doesn't stay around. If a man has sexual relations with an animal in the Torah, you kill the animal too. Not that the animal's guilty, but because such symbols of shame, such reminders of human degradation should not be around. The other version is, what would happen to the talking ass if it lived?
It might talk.
And what would happen to it? It would be in the circus. Everybody would worship it. This would be the greatest thing in the world. So in order to prevent it from becoming a god, like you don't know Moses' burial place, the ass was indeed killed. All right? Now, Bilam said to the angel, okay, finished, I'll go back. No, he says, don't go. It's going to work out better this way now. But only the word which God says you can speak. And when Bilam heard he came, he was all thrilled. But when Balak heard that Bilam came, he was all thrilled. He said, why didn't you come before? I'll give you all the honor. Bilam said, what can I do now after this encounter? He says, what can I do? I can only do what God says. So what does Balak do? Balak cancels the state banquet. For such an occasion, there would be a big banquet at the King David Hotel, at least. And they have fancy foods. What does he do? He sends him sandwiches in his hotel, in his donkey motel. See? And Balak offered oxen and sheep and sent some to Bilam, to the princes that were with him. No state banquet. He just sends them some food. And the next day, Balak took Bilam and brought him up to the high places of Baal, from where he would see part of the people. Now, Rev Hirsch, to make this shorter, Rev Hirsch knows there's 3 attempts here to curse Israel from 3 different places. He says each of those places symbolizes a potential source of national weakness by which this people could be destroyed or cursed. The first is Baal, the god of power, the god of might, the god of savvy, the god of money. So he tries to curse Israel because after all, they're just a bunch of ex-slaves and their arms aren't the latest and the best. So he says this people will disintegrate because they're not really so powerful or rich or smart or big in number or mighty. And what comes when he tries to do that? It doesn't work. After making all kinds of sacrifices to God, Balak makes sacrifices, and God meets Balaam. What message does he give him? He says, you said, come, curse me Jacob, and come, defy Israel. You will find that Jacob and Israel are both mentioned throughout this portion and other places in the Bible. It implies there's 2 entities, Yaakov and Yisrael. We'll see the relationship shortly. It says, how can I curse him? God is not cursed. Or how can I vilify or defy beyond my powers. They're good people, they're holy people, I can't do anything to them. But that's all. That's the first attempt. Balaam says, I brought you the curse and you're blessing. He said, what can I do? That's what God said. Balak said, let's try again from a different place. And you'll see a different part of them. When you look at part of the Jews, when you look at Isengoth, when you look at Fogelman, when you look at Kikart Sion, it might look a little bit bad. But when you see all the Jews, it's a different impression. Okay? Now, he brought him to the field of Sophim, a new place, a new name. What does Sophim mean? What does it mean? What's Har Sophim?
See,
All right.
Something on top.
Yeah,
A
mountain.
lookout.
Lookout. Where you look out, Har Sophim, to Pisgah, the top of a very big height. You look out. Who looks out? That's the leaders, the people with overview and insight. So maybe he'll curse them by saying they don't have leaders who really look up from a high place. The Jews are rather parochial people. The Israelis are parochial in their little land. They don't have the sophistication, the cleverness, the broad perspective of leading statesmen of major nations, a bunch of little Israelis. So he said, okay, so they made their whole bunch of sacrifices, thinking God needs the sacrifices. And he said, God is not a man that he should lie. That's the first message. Nor the Son of Man that he should repent. The Torah here may be attacking Christianity. God is not a man that he should lie. Change his mind. Nor the Son of Man. God is not the Son of Man. A man is not God. That he
Look,
should repent.
Ezekiel uses that. And how could that be if Christianity came after?
That's the point. God is warning you now against Christianity. Now, has he said they should not do it? Or has he spoken, should not make it good? He says, the Jews are my chosen people forever. I never changed this Torah. Behold, I've received commandment to bless, and he's blessed, and I can't reverse it. Now already he's blessing them. He hasn't seen iniquity in them. He understands now that what God needs is not so much rituals and sacrifices. Those things are wonderful when they help man to repent. And they remind him of all kinds of messages. But the main thing is they should be good. And now he turns to something else. The Jews at war. The Lord his God is with them, and the shadow of the king is among them. God brought them out of Egypt. And there's no enchantment against them, no divination will work. All right? This people shall rise as a great lion. He describes them now as a military entity, Reb Henkin knows. And lift himself up as a young lion. He shall not lie down till he eats of the prey and drinks the blood of the slain. And Balak said, don't bless it, don't curse it. What can I do? That's what God said to him. So you see now, he says, this is a people who are blessed in their military adventures themselves, that they are godlike warriors. This is a new level of understanding at this point. Right? Now, okay, next. Yes. Yes.
Is that here?
No, he didn't show up, and so we're doing our best
Oh, I see.
until he comes.
Is there a class?
Yes, down there at the bottom.
You know, one of the things when it says God is not a man that he should lie, but a son of man he should repent.
Yes.
In the context of the Torah, the Balak took Bilam to many places. Maybe in this place God will change his mind. Maybe in this...
That was the idea too, right?
Yeah, and then maybe this was the contents of this is Shach.
As long as you brought that up, let me get right now to another point. Another point is, this is not just coincidence. When the rabbis speak of Bilam, who are they really speaking about? Jesus. Bilam as Korah is a rabbinical symbol for Jesus. Because what does Bilam mean? Biliam, without a B. It's the man who wants God and pretty words and meditation, but all without a people, without his chosen people, and without a special Torah for his chosen people. So whenever the rabbis wanted to comment on Christianity without getting their heads chopped off, they either made up midrashim about Korah, the bald-headed monk, who says all the people are holy, you don't need priests, the king is priest, the people are priests, or they use Bilam without a people, who's also a symbol of Jesus. And here I'm showing you the Torah itself gives that hint. That where it says God is not a man, that he should change his mind, nor the son of man, and so forth. I think very interesting. Okay. Now, and Balak took him to the third place, and that's it. He took him to Peor. Peor was their god of sensual depravity, not of power like And again, he built 7 altars and brought bullocks and rams. And that finishes chapter 23. And this time, Bilam knew he just could not continue this way. And he doesn't try to curse them. And he gives them a long blessing. And he again describes their warlike abilities. But with the warlike abilities, he notes their family holiness and sanctity. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenosecha Yisrael. How good are your tents, O Jacob? Your dwelling place is Israel. Again, Jacob and Israel contrasted. We have that throughout the portion. And we have 2 concepts here, tents and dwelling places. What's the idea Rabbi Yehuda Hankin said? That what he's saying is even though the Jews are mighty warriors, they are still saintly, holy people. Not like soldiers of other nations, running around with all kinds of horrible things in between their fighting. They cheap women, booze, and so forth. The Jews remain a holy family people and people of God even when they're fighting. And conversely, when the Jew is a holy person with God and family, he's also to be a fighter. This is the message for the Israeli army, the soldier with the gun in one hand and the lulav and esrog in the other hand. All right. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And he goes on to praise the Jews in every possible way to the point that we, in prayers, use as a main feature of the prayer, Bilam's utterance, Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenosecha Yisrael. Now, some rabbis said he repented here. Yet we see in the end he's killed among the bad Midianites. So that doesn't contradict. He may have repented now in a moment of inspiration and shame. But something within him in the end let himself be part of the cheapest possible scene in the world. Because despite all the pretty words, that was his essence. God gave the nations a prophet, and look what they did with it. And what he did with it. Okay? And this Yaakov Yisrael business, just to be brief, the Sefer Me'or Einayim of the Chernobyl Rebbe, from which all the Twerskis come. Me'or Einayim, does anyone know what he says on this portion? Anybody know? You all know. Thank you. You answered correctly.
Nothing.
No, he skips it. So even though I quoted Me'or Einayim last week, this week I'll quote another great Hasidic Rebbe, Reb Yaakov Yosef, who wrote Todas Yaakov Yosef. And Yaakov Yosef said, Yaakov represents the average Jew, the working man. Yisrael, the higher level, the transformation at the end of Yaakov's life, represents the great scholars and saints and teachers. So he says that people are good, their tents, their homes, and their synagogues are fine, only when God dwells in the higher rabbis and teachers. And if the higher rabbis and teachers are corrupt, or even lethargic, if they see that the rabbi just goes through his roads, all his rituals and learning, and as soon as he can, he jumps out of the base medrash, and his heart isn't in it, then the people won't even be religious. And conversely, when the people aren't religious, then the rabbi won't have the spirit. And if the people are cursed because they're not inspired by the rabbi, they won't make much money, they won't prosper. Then the rabbi won't have a livelihood, and he won't be able to learn. Here, I take exception with Yaakov Yosef. He quotes the Zohar for it, and I think this is a bad way that the Torah should be a source of livelihood for the people. And I think the lethargy and corruption he speaks of and the lack of inspiration is because the leaders aren't people who are doing the Torah for its own sake, but they do it as another profession, as their way of making a livelihood. And I think much religious corruption, especially the leadership, would not be there if nobody could take money, as the Rambam advises in Pirkei Avot, for teaching the Torah. Okay? So he goes on with a long blessing, very beautiful one. You can read it later. It's chapter 24. And we finally suddenly have an incredible P.S. to this whole section of Balak. Imagine at this point, the Jews beat up Sichon and Og. God is with them. It's the new generation. Everything is fine. They have water. They have food. Bilam tried to curse them, and God turned the curse into a blessing, a remarkable blessing. All of a sudden, chapter 25, and Israel abode in Shittim, and they began to commit whoredom, to sleep promiscuously with the daughters of Moab. This, rabbis say, was the final plan, the final solution of Bilam, which he advised Balak. Let's cool them down with our jet-set ladies. And they tried that much like a Rebbe Kiva. They sent to Rebbe Kiva, Turnus Rufus's wife, to seduce him, and he was attracted. And when he saw her beauty, he spit this world, Rabbi. He was a real person. Then I thought, what's attracting me? What's attracting me is a bit of rotting semen, as my teacher at Kavi Ben Mahalo said. Think on three things and you won't come to sin. Where do you come from? A decaying, rotten piece of semen. So for that, I should give up something much higher and more eternal. All right, but let bygones be bygones. Future, knew the future. Kavi Ben Mahalo said, think where you're going, to a place of worms and moths and rot. What's going to happen to that physical beauty, which is your whole life as a jet-set Roman lady? And why did you cry? I told you. And why did you laugh? That I can't tell you. But he laughed because he saw, with divine inspiration, she was going to be his wife. So she said to him, is there any hope for me? Yes, you can repent. Man can always repent. And she did. He married her. And she brought him a great fortune. And that way he could buy his wife back home in Israel, Rachel, a beautiful Jerusalem of gold crown. Now, Rachel doesn't like that. Well, I'm just quoting you the holy books. What can I do? That's what it says in the holy books. That's one version of where he got the money to buy Rachel the crown. And she was his Nancy Kissinger, his jet-set lady in Rome, and they all lived happily ever after. Layman, the nice Hershey and German family man, in his book of Rebbe Kiva says, after Rachel died. But as I told you, that's not implied. That suggestion is the source for his getting the money to buy Rachel at the end of his life, the golden crown, which was the end of his life. Okay, so the Jews start. That story is brought down, as I recall, in Rashi somewhere. It says in the Gemara, where to get the money for the gold crown? They say from Turnus Rufus' wife, and I think Rashi or Medrash elaborates on it. You can find it by looking under the category of Rebbe Kiva and Bialik Sefer Haggadah. Okay? Or in Layman's book, or in the new book by Kulitz, not to be confused with our Haredi chief rabbi, but it's a cousin or brother or some other wonderful book on translated into English from Rebbe Kiva now. Now, and Israel joined himself to Baal Peor, to their god of sex as a snack, and the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. And God said to Moses, take the heads of the people, hang them up, the ringleaders. Right? Hang up all the ringleaders, and God's anger returned away. And Moses said to the judges, kill them all, and they did. And then something terrible happened. And we'll interrupt the second to let, going up to the group. Okay. At this point, what happened? One of the ringleaders, the prince of the tribe of Shimon, of Simon, suddenly took one of the chief Midianite women. It's not told here as a prince, because, again, king became a meaningless title, and when princes act like that, jet-set people, their titles are cheap, they're worthless. It just says a man of Israel came, and he took a Midianite woman. Forget that she's a princess, she's just a cheap slut. And they tried, he brought her right in front of Moses, and Moses and the elders broke down and cried. They didn't know what to do. Here, after everything's all right, they're finally about to go in, this happens. And Pinchas didn't cry. He took a javelin, and he went after the man of Israel. He took a javelin, and he went after the man of Israel into the bed, and he went through the two of them, the man and the woman, right through her belly, which clearly indicates they were having sexual relations, otherwise he couldn't spear them together. And the plague was stayed from the children of Israel, and we'll see how God evaluates this action of zealotry next week. And 24,000 had died in the plague, which is roughly the diminution in the number of the tribe of Shimon in next week's census in Numbers 26. So it indicates not just the prince of Shimon, but the whole tribe of Shimon founded Elat. All right? An ancient version of Elat, it's cheap gambling and women and drink and all, to bring the tourists in. So that's how we end our portion. Now, I think that we'll do a little bit more. We finished the portion. Now, after the portion, what did we start doing last week? Tehillim. Now, wouldn't it be nice if I could sneak Tehillim into Bilam?
Oh, Psalm 84. Oh.
Huh?
Psalm 84.
84? You sure?
Well, it isn't here.
All right.
It begins,
Find 84.
How many people on our tabernacles?
Let's look at 84. Do you have it there?
I have it here we go.
I have your other Bible up here. Psalms 84. Go ahead.
It's only the first verse. How many people on our tabernacles along the posts, which is what Bilam says.
Bilam's expression is used, but is there a reference to Bilam?
Oh, no.
All right, there is. Which
I'm going to
psalm?
ask you whether he, whether his words are inspired. inspired that psalm. That's what I was going to ask.
All right, let's look at that, man. Can you read me the first verse?
How amiable are thy tabernacles, O Lord of hosts. That's the first verse.
I don't have that one in front of me in the Hebrew.
Well, it's, the numbering is different.
No, the numbering is fine, but I'm just wondering the original Hebrew word for amiable, all right? It is similar, but here it's referring to God's tabernacles,
Yes.
where there it's referring to Israel's, okay? Anyway, what I was starting to do there is Rabbi Yaakov Yosef, who said if the leaders are no good, if God's presence is not among the leaders, if they lack enthusiasm, if they even walk a little bit without learning Torah or being involved in the Torah, it shows they're not really into it, then the people turn away from the whole thing. Rabbi Yaakov Emden, Rabbi Yaakov, Tolas Yaakov rather, he was the first major critic of the Misnagdic rabbinic establishment. And Tolas is Rabbi Yaakov Yosef is his full name, and in Tolas Yaakov Yosef, he showed how the rabbis had become cool and indifferent and uninspiring and corrupt. Not so much corrupt, actually, as cool and indifferent to the people, and not really inspiring. And he quoted the verse from Malachi 3:23. I am sending you Elijah the prophet. What's his job? He will bring the hearts of fathers back to their children, and then the hearts of children shall return to their fathers. When parents will really understand their children and be sensitive and empathetic, the children will respond with their hearts. And when the fathers, the rabbis and leaders, really have empathy and sympathy and understanding of their flock, the flock will suddenly come back to the teaching of their fathers, to the rabbis. That's where Yaakov Yosef put it. So this was part of a broadside against the religious establishment of his days in the early 1700s, which we often see in this country, even chief rabbis of cities and countries. Chief rabbis often are sort of cold, angry people. They're proper. There's no scandals. It's not like by the fundamentalists. They have the discipline of Torah, and they're very pious, and they're very learned, but they don't go out to the people, and they're not warm and friendly and joyful and enthusiastic. It's like a robotized religious leader. And that's what Yaakov Yosef spoke against, okay?
Can I just come back to that first verse again? When you quoted Bilam speaking about the appearance of Israel, he climbs the hill and he looks down and sees the tents of Israel.
Yes. And they didn't face each other, just Jewish sexual modesty.
I see. But okay, I'll not pursue it then. But I thought that he was seeing something that he'd never seen before.
He didn't. He never saw sexual modesty.
Yeah, okay. In the tabernacle instructions, the Levites are around the tabernacle in a certain order, and then the tents of Israel, and they're all in orderly lines, and they've got to keep the place clean.
Oh, that's nice too.
And this is the first time he's ever seen an orderly. We drive down to Jericho, we see the Bedouin encampments. These are not the tents of Israel.
I was thinking of something else. He saw all the tents grouped around the tabernacle.
Yeah.
That God and that the two go together.
Yeah.
The Jewish family can be holy only if God's in that family.
Yeah.
Man is Ish, woman is Isha. Only when they're together do you have Yud Hey, the name of God. But the psalm which deals with Jewish history in the desert is 106.
106.
In Psalm 106, David reviews Hodu Hashem, give thanks to God. He is good, his mercy endures forever. He goes through their whole history and how even in Egypt they had idols, and at the Red Sea they had idols, and they murmured in their tents, going to verse 25, didn't listen to God. And he lifted up his hand against them to overthrow them in the wilderness, etc. They joined themselves also to Baal Peor, the thing we read about at the end of our chapter, to the pagan, wild, orgiastic cult, and ate the sacrifices of the dead. And they thus provoked him to anger with their inventions, and the plague broke out. Then stood up Pinchas and executed judgment, and the plague was stayed. And that was counted to him for righteousness unto all generations forever, and so forth. Then it goes on to Memariba later. So here, they don't mention Bilam and Balak at all. Why? Because David doesn't want them to pass the buck. Sure, Bilam and Balak brought them to sin, but you can't say he made me sin. Ein shliach l'dvar avera. No one can tell anyone else to sin. If you sin, it's your own fault. So even though the story of their wickedness is told to us in the Torah, later too, when Moshe recounts it, he's not interested in Bilam. He's interested in the Jews' sin. Okay? We can do the round. Now, tell you where it really comes to Tehillim. Let's find Bilam as the rabbis find Bilam in Tehillim. At this point, I will shift to Pirkei Avot, chapter 5, in the Ethics of the Fathers in the Talmud. Let me just find the source, 1 second. Does anyone have a siddur with them? It doesn't matter, I have something else with me. Did anyone see my bag? Where in this very unusual setting is my bag? I got it. I got it. Watch what I'm going to pull out of my bag. I feel like a magician here up on top, since we're speaking of magicians and sorcerers, so watch what I pull out of my bag after I found it. This is Pirkei Avot, copied from an authentic siddur, with the picture of the donkey and the angel and Bilam. Very nice picture. Avot 5:22. Kol mi sheyesh bo shlosha devarim halalu. Everyone who has these three things, humi talmidav shel Avraham Avinu. He is a pupil of Abraham our father. Shlosha devarim acherim, and three other things, he's from the pupils of Bilam the wicked. What are the three things of a true pupil of Abraham? A good eye, and a lowly or down-to-earth spirit, ruach nemucha, ayin tova, ruach nemucha, the nefesh shpala, and a, let's call it modest, that's a nice word, a modest soul. Now we have two expressions here. We have a low spirit and a modest soul. We have to differentiate. We will in a moment. So that's from Abraham's pupils. An evil eye, a haughty or high spirit, and a broad soul, as opposed to a modest soul, is from Bilam the evil's pupils. Right? What's the difference? If you go one way or the other. People ask, so what's in it for me? Ma bein talmidav shel Avraham Avinu talmidav shel Bilam HaRasha. What's between the two sets of disciples? The pupils of Avraham Avinu eat in this world. They have what they need. They don't frisk, but they eat. But no chalim, but their real inheritance, Cholam Haba, is the world to come, the world of eternity. As it is said, L'hanchil ohava yesh, to give inheritance to those who love me, there is. V'yotzor sehem amalei, and I will fill their treasuries. That's in Proverbs 8, if I remember 21. The pupils, the disciples of Bilam the evil, they inherit also. But it's not a nachala. The Arshim, they automatically inherit Gehenna, hell. And they go down the Be'er Shachat, to a pit of destruction. How do you know that? Because it says in the good book, in Psalms 55 through 24. And you, Lord of nature, that's the one that speaks to Bilam, V'ata Elohim, Torideim Le'Be'er Shachat, will take them down to a pit of destruction. Anshe Domim, men of blood, Mirmah, trickery and plotting. Lo Yechatsu Yemehem, they shall not live half of their days. V'ani, but I, Eftach Bach, will trust in you, David says to God. How old was Jesus when he died, allegedly?
How old was
32 or something?
33 and a half.
33 and a half. How much is half your days?
35.
Yes. So, again, a maybe cryptic reference to Christianity through Bilam, the man without a people, who they apply this verse in Psalms to a evil people who won't even half out their days. Got it? But, looking into it a little deeper, let's be fair. The same way I tell the Christians, Isaiah never mentions Jesus. You're trying to read him in, but if he mentioned Jesus, he would have said so. So here too, if Proverbs and Psalms means Bilam, I'd like him to say so somewhat, something a little clearer. All it says here is the ones who love God inherit, or you could say it. These traits describe the traits of someone who loves God. He's not haughty because he sees God as so great, who is he? And he's kind because everybody is God's creatures, not just him, it's my brothers and sisters. And every creation is God's. So it fits. One who loves God will be kind, will be modest, will have a good eye, he'll be generous because God wants you to share. It's very nice. The second part, people of blood will come down to a pit. Well, yes, who have big appetites, who have unsatiable physical appetites for sensual pleasure, a broad, a expansive soul, that's what that means, as opposed to a modest soul who's content with, he'll enjoy a nice party, but he doesn't go waste his life looking for it or making money to have it. All right? It's not bad, but let's look and see if there's something more specific. And lo and behold, I found. Psalms 55, let's learn Tillam a little bit now. We'll close with these things, I think. Psalms 55. It ends, 55th Psalm. It starts off, give ear to my prayer, O God, hide yourself not from my supplications. Hear me, I mourn in my complaint and make a noise. Because of the voice of the enemy, because of the oppression of the wicked. For they cast iniquity upon me, and in their anger they hate me. What's even more hurtful than a wicked person? A good person who's wicked. What hurts you the most is not when you encounter wickedness, but when you encounter he or she who you thought was your friend, who turns out to be wicked. That's even worse. And that would be a symbol of Bilam. The man who's the theologian, who's close to God, who should welcome you. He turns bad. So let's go on. Verse 4, my heart is sore pained, and the terrors of death have fallen on me, and so forth and so forth. And David says in verse 6, I said, oh, that I had wings like a dove. I would fly away and be at rest. I'd remain in the wilderness. I'd run away. Destroy, O Lord, and divide their tongues, and so forth. Day and night they go about, plotting against me. And then look at verse 12. For it was not an enemy that reproached me, then I could have taken it. Nor if someone who hated me did it, then I would have hid myself. But it was you, my friend, my guide, and so forth. David was betrayed by friends, by his close ones. Joab killed his friends, Ahithophel, and so forth. We took sweet counsel together and walked into the house of God in company. And all of a sudden you're against me. Let death seize upon them. Let them do that quickly into hell. For wickedness is in their dwellings and among them. As for me, I'll call upon God, and the Lord will save me. Evening and morning and noon. Here's the three prayers. Will I pray and cry aloud, and he shall hear my voice. He's delivered my soul in peace from the battle that was against me, many with me. God shall hear and afflict them, even he that abides of old Selah, because they have no changes, they fear not God. Now, going on to verse 21. Look at this. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. Who's that? Bilam. That's exactly Bilam, the great reverend, the great orator. So the rabbis did just take this out of nowhere. It's true, I showed you how this verse in Psalms could apply to anyone who has those traits of the pupils of Bilam. But it's more than that. Just before this verse 24 and verse 21, it describes Bilam. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. Cast your burden upon the Lord, he shall sustain you. He shall never suffer the righteous to be moved. And here comes the verse. So it's verse 23 in this one. But you, God, shall bring them down into the pit of destruction. Bloody and deceitful men shall not live out half their days, but I will trust them. Okay? That's the one. We'll study now of Psalms. And going on to Proverbs 8:21. Let's see, I have it here.
May I make a comment? Rabbi Dr. Norman Lamb,
Yes.
in one of his books, which I have, he says, when we enter synagogue, ycov, it's total respect for privacy, so that when one opened the door, he couldn't see what's doing inside the home of the
Right,
other one.
right.
Not just, very close physical relationships, complete privacy.
Right. That the holiest things, the holiest
Respect for
holies,
privacy.
is always hidden and concealed. Only the Kohen Gadol with great preparation and trepidation enters there once a year. The Jewish concept is the holier it is, the more you stay away from it out of religious modesty. You know you're not on that level. And therefore, the Holy of Holies, my most intimate feelings and responses to others in my family, especially between man and wife, are to be kept concealed and hidden. All right? Now, going to Proverbs 21, the verse that's brought for the reward of the pupils of Abraham, to make those who love me inherit substance, reality, something real, yesh, as opposed to the vanities and transient nature and I will fill their treasuries. What's that have to do with Abraham and Bilam? Again, if you look back just a few verses, this is in the 8th proverb. It's the Torah speaking by me, princes rule, and nobles, even all the judges of the earth have to understand whatever power they have comes from me. I love them that love me, and those that seek me earnestly shall find me. Riches and honor with me, enduring riches and righteousness. And what's it say there? My fruit is better than gold. Yes, than fine gold, and my produce than choice silver. And what does Bilam say? Even if you give me all this gold and silver there is, I cannot go against God. Bilam wants the gold and silver, and God says you should understand that my fruit is better than gold, yea, than fine gold. I walk in the way of righteousness in the midst of the paths of justice, that I may cause those that love me, not those who manipulate me or want divine powers or want brachot, but those who love me shall inherit something of true worth, and I may fill their treasuries. Okay? So that, I'd say, is about enough on this parsha. Maybe we'll do a word on the Haftarah. There's a question coming out of the depths here.
About this, so about Bilam, it's interesting. He wanted the money, but he couldn't bring himself to go against the word of God.
Right.
It reminds me, the Ruach HaKodesh was so strong, even with wicked Bilam.
Yes.
It reminds me of something in Yirmiyahu. He wanted not to speak, but yet the Ruach HaKodesh, the word of Hashem, was like a fire in Yirmiyahu's bones, and he couldn't be silent.
Yes. But here it's simple practical consideration.
It's not, it's such a strength. The Ruach was in Bilam and in Yirmiyahu in such strong strength.
You can't look, as I always say, if God will suddenly appear to Shalamat Alomi, or the most strongly anti-observant people, or Yossi Sari, and say, go to yeshiva tomorrow, they would go. But God doesn't do that, because he wants man to come to it of his own free will. So we'll just close with the short Haftarah. The Haftarah is Micha 5:6 to 6:8. 5:6 to 6:8. All right. 1 second. Except in this Bible it's slightly different. Anyway, Micha starts here in chapter 6. Let's see. You have the place down there.
I can sing it for you if you want.
Go ahead. Okay. Thank you. That was your bar mitzvah? Yeah. Happy birthday. You're a Balakara. No, it was bar mitzvah. Very good. God works in mysterious ways. We had to stand just when we needed it. So in this particular Bible, it's chapter 5, verse 7, rather than 6. So the remnant of Yaakov shall be in the midst of many people, like dew from the Lord. As the showers upon the grass that doesn't wait for man or the sons of men. Again, no sons of men. And the remnant of Yaakov shall be among the Gentiles in the midst of many people, as a lion among the beasts of the forest, as a young lion among the flocks of sheep. Again, the blessing of Jacob as a warrior, fighting evil in the world. All right? So now, what does this mean, the remnant of Jacob in the midst of many people? So some say it means the Jews in exile, but that's a little difficult because of the power. Or maybe they go through alternate cycles. They're always like dew, refreshing and giving God and family and good values to the nations in exile. And sometimes they have power to do tremendous things, like today the Jews in the United States. But some say this means the Jews when they come back to Israel now. Israel among all the nations shall both be a power and a source of life-giving dew. And we speak of the end of days, but then at some point God will cut out all idols and witchcraft, and also he will cut out Jewish military power. In verse 10 here, I will cut off your horses and chariots. He'll want the Jews to rely only on him. And if they rely on their military power, he'll have to show them the military power won't work without God. And then chapter 6, God says, hear, O mountains, the Lord's controversy, he describes his controversy with his people. And O my people, remember what Balak, king of Moab, consulted, what Balaam, the son of Beor, answered him from Shittim to Gilgal. Shittim to Gilgal aren't the places. The three places he cursed, we mentioned. Pisgah, Baal, Sophim, Peor. Shittim to Gilgal are the places where the Jews sinned. The reason that terrible things happened to Israel and so many died, again, we don't blame it on Balaam and Balak. It's because you sinned from Shittim to Gilgal, that you may know the righteousness of the Lord. Then he says, this is one of the most beautiful and famous passages in the Bible, with what shall I come before the Lord? Like Balaam and Balak with a whole bunch of sacrifices? And bow myself before the high God. Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves of a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, or with 10,000 of rivers of oil? Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? No way. Verse 8. He has shown you, O man, not just you, every human being. It's within you what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To do justice,